What's up, guys? It is Coach Kallv V, and this is another softball podcast. And this is your host, me, Coach Kallv V. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the pro going to coach. Let's go. Before we get started on this episode, I have to remind you, be sure to go to the show notes, especially if you've ever wondered what it's like to work with me, Coach Kallv V, as your pitching coach, or maybe you're a parent that would like your daughter to work with me. Super simple. You're going to go back to the show notes. You're going to click on the link to book your free virtual game plan call. Within this time, when you and I talk, we're going to discover what's going to be the best fit for your daughter. Maybe it's the online course. Maybe it's joining my pitching membership. Maybe it's training with me online. Maybe it's working with me in small group training or one-on-one. But we're not going to know until you book the free virtual game plan call. So go back to the show notes, click on that link, and book it now. Coaches, the second link is for you. Instructors, yes, you too. I feel like an airplane person directing traffic. But yes, seriously, go back to the show notes, click on the KVS Coordinated Coaching Membership, and from there, you are going to become a part of a community of coaches from all walks of life, all across the world, whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the ending part of their career. We're talking practice plans, we're talking drills, we're talking the emotional aspect of the game as well as the mental aspect of the game, helping us as coaches not only process things, but also understand things through our own experiences or things that we're currently walking through. So you're gonna wanna go back to the show notes and join the KVS Coordinated Coaching Membership. Okay, now we can get to the show. Let's go. What's up, guys? It is Coach Kallv V, and I have Coach Pat Gorman in the house, former professional Major League Baseball player, now turned coach of almost 19 years total, travel ball, and currently a high school coach. Why would I have an MLB former player, now coach on the show? Because I'm all into supporting coaches, and I know there are coaches out there in the world that are going from pro to coach, and maybe they need a little navigation. And look, I got a guy who's willing to come on the show and help you guys out. So Pat, the floor is yours. And I always like to start with where it all started for you. Like, how did you know that baseball was your thing, and then pro, and then what got you into coaching?
I mean, well, first of all, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's an honor. I'm excited. As you know, we both thought it was a different day because we were too excited. So I'm very happy to be here. Everything started with me, I guess, in Little League. You know, I was, 9, 10, 11-year-old kid, and I threw the ball hard. You know, I'm not going to say I was a pitcher then, because I probably wasn't. I was just a kid who threw the ball as fast as I could. And I guess that intimidated a lot of kids. They didn't want to get in the batter's box, like they scrunch up so the strike zone goes like this, those type of things. And very long time ago, Roy White, ex-Yankee, who, is in their top 15 in 9 or 10 categories, also coached first base there. He actually ended up coming to our Little League game because another player on my team, he was his godfather. So, he started saying things to me, which gave me the idea, maybe I am okay. Like, I'm pretty good at this game. My dad was my coach. He was a homicide detective in Manhattan. So it was, it wasn't like I had, Nolan Ryan as my dad. I had a guy who, caught bad guys, who was more of a football fan and boxing fan than anything. So, once Roy White had said something to me, it was kind of like, oh, maybe there is, a future in this sport. And at that age, I loved basketball. I loved football. I played soccer. I played everything. Mm-hmm. And when I got towards high school, my sophomore year was when I kind of navigated and said, I guess baseball is probably going to be the path. I'm a 6-foot center on the basketball team. I don't see myself going to Duke, though I guarded guys that went to Duke. And then football, I mean, that was probably my least best sport. I was, as a kid, when I was young in Pop Warner, I played defensive end, and I was the punter and the kicker, and because I came from soccer. Then when I got to high school, it was the same thing. I played, well, first of all, my school didn't have football until my sophomore year. So okay. I was on varsity soccer as a sophomore, and they had a JV football season. So I didn't want to go from a varsity athlete to a JV team. So I stayed, and then junior year, they became varsity. And when they became varsity, that's when I switched. So I played football junior and senior year at my alma mater, Albertus Magnus High School. And I ended up playing fullback, which for me, it was fun. There was no pressure. I didn't have to run 90 yards every time I got the ball. It was just like the first time I could play a sport, and I didn't put so much pressure on myself, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure every athlete out there understands that. And then I wasn't going to play basketball my senior year because, as kids these days say, I want to get ready for baseball, which for me probably would have been do nothing. In all honesty, it's I should have been outside every day, but I ended up playing basketball, and it was one of my best decisions I've ever made. And it was just a lot of fun, and I learned more in that season from my coach than any coach I've ever had in my life. And my high school basketball coach played for Coach K at West Point. So that competitive side, and that, he made me a better basketball player than I actually was. And he made me believe that I was a lot better than I was. And to me, that's the sign of a good coach. Getting a player to play above and exceed his, skill set or his own, mental side of the game, thinking I can't get a hit. I can't hit this kid. He throws 80 miles an hour, convincing him and himself that he can hit that. And then obviously the results might be a little different. So it's been a long road, put it that way, but it's been fun.
That's awesome. I have a question though. When you say that coach made you better, I feel like today's day and age, a lot of coaches take that as almost, they do like it's like a complete mental destruction, completely leaving a kid completely flatlined, and they think they've done a good job. Do you see that in today's coaching all the way out there in New York? Are you seeing these coaches like come at these kids like, I see their greatness, I'm trying to get them to be great, that's all I'm doing, and then they leave them? Or are they constructing them as your coach did, your basketball coach?
To be honest with you, my basketball coach, his name was Joe McGinnis. He actually passed away, a couple of years ago of cancer, but he was, the way he formatted us was when we came together as a group before practice, after practice, it was never Falcons or win. It was always either family, together, team, brotherhood. It was always sculpting us to want to play for the man next to us, not for ourselves. If I'm playing for myself, now there's a selfish aspect to the game where if I'm being selfish, I'm going to take away from the game, my teammates, and it's like you're sucking the energy out of the entire team if you're just looking out for yourself. And he made it very clear that, we're playing for each other. Almost like a military Marine type thing, like leave no man behind. Like that was our, camaraderie. That's what we did. After any whistle, we huddled up. We had our arms around each other. We'd huddle up and we'd talk about X, Y, and Z, whatever. And he just made it almost like a mandatory thing that, you're not going to say after the game, how many points did I have? Ever. Like that was never an aspect. If we won the game, it didn't matter if, the 15th guy on the team ended up with 20 points. The starters had 10 each. Like it didn't matter. As long as we got a win and we did it as a unit, that was the goal. And we were successful.
I love that, because I'm finding when I ask my pitchers that I work with, how did it go? And every now and then I'll hear, well, I did my job. What do you mean? Did you, what does the score say?
Yeah.
Did you do your job? Well, I pitched great, but my defense didn't show up. There are times, and this, that your defense just sucks, but there are times that you suck too. Right? So what do you say to those athletes because I know you're dealing with this, because I feel like this is just all over the United States, it's the mentality now. What do you say to those athletes who respond with that? How do you construct them to look at it differently?
If I'm speaking to a pitcher and pitcher's out there, he's throwing strikes, he's getting ground balls, and we're not making plays, I encourage the pitcher to turn around and say something to the shortstop to uplift him. Next play, turn 2 on this one. you're good. You're good. You know, like whatever encouraging words, you know, if I turn around and I say, come on, man, you got to field that, you know, well, the next one, he's probably going to miss it, you know,
Hmm.
because in his head, he's trying to not make a mistake. He's not trying to make the play, you
Right.
know, and as you know, baseball, softball, it's a game of failure. You know, once you can accept that you're going to fail in this game, it
Hmm.
becomes a lot easier to play.
Hmm.
You know, when you're so worried, like, oh, if I make 2 errors in this game, I'm not going to play shortstop next week. Or if I go 0 for 3 and strike out twice, coach isn't going to trust me to move a runner. You know, he's going to pinch hit for me. You know, I don't think you can play that way. I mean, I would have a very difficult time, and I try to encourage my guys. You know, like a simple thing when we take batting practice. I don't necessarily the first round say, all right, this cage is going to hit to the right side. This cage is going to hit to the left side. It's, you know, 2 bunts, hit and run, and 10 swings. You have to get the barrel on the baseball 10 times. You're not leaving this cage until you barrel up the ball 10 times. If it takes 20 pitches, 30, 10, whatever it is, that's when you're allowed to leave my cage and go to the next one. You
Mm.
know, and it's just trying to encourage them that you just want to hit the ball hard. Don't focus on the result, because the result in here in a 70-foot cage by 12 feet isn't going to give you the result you're looking for anyway.
Right.
You know, just hit the ball hard. That's like an example of, you know, just a little approach of what I bring to my team.
I love that. I mean, you're teaching them to finish
Yep.
versus be satisfied without even giving 100% effort, like, or whatever they have. Sue Inquist, I don't know if you know who Sue is, but she was a game changer for UCLA with softball back in the day. And she has a foundation called One. And she always talks about nobody's ever 100 all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Very few days in between, we are 100%. We have to teach our athletes just like we have to teach ourselves as coaches. What do I have in me today? I got 75%. I'm going to give 100 of my 75. And what I'm learning with a lot of the girls and the demographics that I'm coaching is teaching them to take how they feel in that moment. If they have 75, they need to give 100% of their 75. And if they fail, there is a different feeling in failing, giving all you got, versus failing, not really trying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what I'm hearing when you say you're not going to finish until you do 10 complete barrel, like through hard hits versus going here, going there, you're teaching them to learn what it feels like to actually finish.
Yeah, to succeed.
Yes.
You know, like I in the last, I'd say probably 3 to 5 years, the big focus for me and the guys that I coach with is, you know, first, energy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
are we practicing up here? Or are we practicing down here? You know, what's the level of energy today? You know, did the kids you know, have their SAT today, and are they, you know, walking down a little drained? You know, what can I do as a coach, even if I don't feel 100%? What can I do to bring that energy up to get them to match my level for us to have a good practice? You know, it might be practicing for an hour that day. You know,
Mm-hmm.
instead of going 2 hours, let's get their main focus for 60 straight minutes, get them in, get them out. They'll learn more. If I keep them here for 2.5 hours and they're walking in without energy, you know, they're going to walk out completely miserable, mad that they were there for 2.5 hours, not going to be focused, you know. So I think that, you know, time management, obviously, during practice, and, you know, short bursts of information instead of, you know, 20 minutes of me talking about how we're going to stop a first and third play, you know, instead of doing it in 10 minutes, giving them a chance to forget and come back and do it again for another 10 minutes, you know, just to see what they've retained and what they didn't. Because right there, you're going to know who was paying attention,
Mm-hmm.
who wasn't, you know, who's going to be the leader and step up and say to his teammate, come on, man, you know this, let's go, you know, whatever it may be. So, I mean, that's one thing that, you know, I like to do, and our, you know, the coaches around me, you know, instead of dragging out a 2 hour, 3 hour practice and, you know, leaving saying, do we gain anything today? Did we get better today? You know, I'm sure you've had that walk off the field with your assistant saying, was today useless? Like, did we, why did we even practice? You know?
Well, in truth, I don't like being a head coach. I enjoy being an assistant coach because I really feel like my journey as a coach is to help that coach,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of have somebody to bounce ideas off of, also be able to be like, okay, I need to know that I can have a two-way like communication with Coach Kally. Like I love it when my coaches are like, today I'm going to be a complete jerk. And I'm like, why? Like, why are you telling me this? Like, let's talk about this. And then by the time they tell me how they're feeling, they're like, it's like a woo-saw moment for them.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that as a head coach for you, how are you constructing your coaching staff to support each other?
Now, just to give you a little insight, I was a head coach of every summer league team I've coached.
Okay.
I was a pitching coach at the collegiate level at Nyack College for 2 years. Then I left Nyack. I went to my alma mater, Albertus, and I was the head coach there for 8 years. Then I left Albertus and I moved to Philadelphia, and I worked at All-Star Baseball Academy out there for 3 years leading up to the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit, and I decided to come back to New York instead of paying rent in Philly and not knowing what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back to New York, and last year, one of the coaches that coached for me at Albertus, he was actually my JV coach. And then a week before the season, he got offered a head coach job. And, of course, the conversation was, oh, I don't want to leave you high and dry. Listen, you go when you get a head coach job. You don't stay back.
Yeah.
So you're going from JV to varsity. Doesn't matter what level, A, B, C, double A, triple A. I don't care. Go take that job. I'll figure this out. And he did. And he took over a program that was not very good. The interest wasn't there. The community around the school, no interest. And he turned that around, and he turned it into a program that when they come to your field to play, you're getting a game instead of, oh, this is going to be a blowout, and that's the way it used to be. You could throw your number 4 against them 5 years ago. You can't do it anymore. So what happened was that coach ended up getting the job at his alma mater, which is Clarkstown South. And he called me last October and said, this is my last year. I'm leaving. And I don't want the program to go to just anybody.
Did you know that when you join the KVS Coordinated Coaching membership, you are locked into exclusive discounts on products that are going to help not only make your job so much easier, but your team, practice so much more effectively and efficiently and take that practice to the game? I'm talking products like the Tater Ball, the 5-ounce highly dense compressed softball. Yes, there is a baseball too, okay, but I'm going to talk to my softball coaches. This ball can go into the hack attack machine, and your softball players can take multiple reps, and their hands don't hurt, their wrists don't hurt, and it protects your $500 game bat. What? I know, get out of here, right? But it doesn't stop there. You also get discounts on amazing products like for the mind. I'm talking Always Grind, the journals for the coach, the pitcher, the catcher, the hitter, for your whole entire team. Yes, this is huge. This is something I love implementing in my pitchers' work, especially when they're working bullpens. Ooh, talk about carrying the practice into the game. Let's go, right? But one more thing, one of my favorites, high-level throwing. Why high-level throwing? Because they have programs specifically designed for beginner athletes to athletes that maybe have created a negative movement pattern, and it just reins them right back into where they're moving in such a way that they're going to have a healthy, long career playing softball and baseball. So yeah, when you join the KVS Coordinated Coaching membership, my partners partner up with you. So don't you want that? That's right, you do. Go back to the show notes, click on the KVS Coordinated Coaching membership, and join today, and not only lock in your exclusive discounts, but just be a part of a community that just cares about you, the coach, as well as your athletes. Let's go.
So I'd rather give it to you. So I said, okay. So I went through all the avenues. I got a job in the district because I knew my chances of getting that head coach job would go up, instead of being an outsider. Resume wise, I think my resume is pretty good, baseball terms. So I knew I'd be okay there. And we ended up going into the season with 32 kids on the team, 18 seniors, which as a head coach, I don't think I would have taken that many kids because it's very hard to manage a practice, you know. So that was last year, and we ended up making it. We won the league last year, and then we made it to the section final, and we overachieved in every possible aspect. Our number one to start the year didn't throw a pitch for us. Our number two got hurt a week before the playoffs. So we ended up playing the eventual state champion in the quarterfinal and throwing our second baseman, who went 9 scoreless. Then it got dark on a Monday. We got sent home. We had to come back on Tuesday to finish the game. And we threw our shortstop the final 4 innings, and we ended up winning, and 4-1. So we win that game with not even a pitcher on the mound. So they win the semi. Now they got to beat us twice in the final. Now, mind you, their shortstop's going to Ole Miss. They got 3 pitchers that throw in the 90 to 95, and they're all signed Division I. So, and they're all juniors. So now they're seniors this year. Yeah. So they have to beat us twice, and we have our number 2 pitcher now back. He throws game 1. He's a sophomore, gets knocked out in the first inning. So now we piece it together. We lose 7-3. Go the next day, they got to beat us again. They beat us 8-4. And the fact that we were able, to make it there, let alone give them a game twice without really having any pitching, is a testament to the belief that we made these kids, believe that, you guys are better than you think you are. And they were, like you're trying to deal with 32 personalities, 64 parents' personalities, and trying to make everybody one with that amount of kids is very difficult. But we were able to do that last year. We didn't have a kid that we had to send home because he was messing around in practice. We didn't have a kid that we threw off the team. Like, that didn't exist. We just had a really, really good group of kids.
So do you think that was a reflection of you and your coaching staff?
Yeah, I think, all around, we had 1, 2, 3, we had 5 coaches with the varsity that year. So to finish my story, what happened was he called me, told me he was leaving. So he said he needed a JV coach. I was like, all right, I'll do the JV. 3 days later, he calls me and says, I'd be an idiot to not have you with the varsity, what your experience, blah, blah, blah. So he said, why don't you do the freshman? We'll manipulate the schedule because JV plays home, varsity plays away on the same days always. So we did that. I coached the freshman, and then I assisted on the varsity. So we practice at 2:30, 4:30 JV practices, 6:30 varsity practice. So I go to work at 6:30 in the morning, get out at 2, practice at 2:30, sit around for 2 hours, practice from 6:30 to 8:30, get home about 9. And I did that for the 3 months, so this year I didn't want to do that to myself again. It was just a lot of time. Now I loved it. I enjoyed it. Our freshman team, I think, was 16-3 or whatever it may be. We lost in the county championship. But I tried to stress to my team, wins and losses are great. It's awesome. But my job is to prepare you 14 kids for the varsity level. Wins and losses don't matter right now, at the freshman level. We have 8 senior position players graduating. So as sophomores, I want to try to put all of you in a position to make or fight for a job next year at that varsity level. So like I had a kid that was a shortstop his whole life, played second base for me every game. So after the second game, you could see, like, why aren't I playing shortstop? I'm the best shortstop, like you sense that, so I had a conversation. I said, next year, you're not going to be the starting shortstop or have an opportunity to win that job at the varsity level. But there's a very good chance you can fight for that second baseman job. So that's why I'm having you play second, to prepare you for next year. And I did that with, another kid that swinging the bat, we knew he was a varsity hitter as a sophomore. He was a first baseman. The only returning player is our first baseman, our 3 hitter. So he's not going to play first over him. So last year he played third all year to try to learn how to play that position, so he has a chance to win that job this year. So that's kind of what I did when I was with the freshmen. So I assisted him on the varsity last year, coached the freshman, and he didn't leave. He's still there. So our initial conversation was, within 1 to 3 years, I'm going to leave. That's what he had said to me. So I said, all right, I'll give you the 3 years or whatever. And this year, because you don't have a coach, I'll do the freshman. I think there's a little bitter taste in his mouth getting to the championship and not winning it, which gave him that competitive edge that he wants to come back. And I feel like there's unfinished business being the assistant, one of the assistants, and him as the head coach, that, I want to win for him. So he can go off into the sunset how he wants to, like that.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. And like you said before, as an assistant, my job is to do whatever the head coach needs, whether it's base running, work with the catchers, go show these guys how to shag BP, whatever it may be, that's my job. So last year I helped out during the games. I always got the pitchers ready, go get so-and-so up. I'd go down with them. We do have a pitching coach. It's a kid that I actually trained back in the day.
Okay.
And that was my one stipulation of working with the varsity, that I'm not stepping on Frank's toes. He's the pitching coach. I'll support him in any way, but I'm not gonna, say, well, he shouldn't be throwing this pitch, he should throw that pitch. Like, that's just not my personality. I would go to Frank and say, why don't you not do this and try this? I'm not going to talk behind anybody. So I'm actually right now one of the assistant coaches just on varsity at South, with aspirations of hopefully, getting the head job one day if that opportunity, comes up.
Right now, it sounds like you're kind of in the trenches and you're in a place where you're building your toolbox for that moment. And that's what I'm hearing is, I like the fact that you're not constructing conversations behind your pitching coach's back. And it sounds like that pitching coach is in a good place to do what they need to do for the team as well.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you're respecting his job and he's respecting your job.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have full confidence in him as a coach, as an individual. He's knowledgeable. If something comes up and he isn't sure, he's humble enough to come and say, "Hey Pat, what do you think about X, Y, and Z?" And I'm the same way when it comes to hitting. I'm more of a pitching type guy. That was what I did. That's what I interacted with coaches more, and I learned more of. So when it comes to hitting, I'll ask our hitting coach, Coach Prendergrass, should he be holding the bat a little different? Should he let the ball travel a little bit more? What do you think? It's always, what do you think? Or am I right? I just don't want to tell him the wrong thing, that type of conversations. And then when it comes to base running last year, that was kind of like, you take the outfielders in game, make sure they're positioned correctly, and base running's you. You show them how to do a secondary. You show them, we do a thing where every single pitch, your thought process is to get to second base. Where we'll start our steal, and if it's a slide step, we shut it down into a secondary. Okay. If there's a lift, we continue. We don't shut it down. So we're trying to prepare the kids for that. And then I always, especially when I was at Albertus for the years I was there, I ran a delayed steal that I got from a guy who coaches in college that I learned a lot from. So I run a delayed steal. And when I was at Albertus as the head coach, everybody knew it was coming, but nobody could stop it. And the reason why is, in baseball, when you run a delayed steal, and if there's a left-handed batter, the catcher's blocked out by the hitter, can't see the secondary. First baseman steps off the bag, the runner's behind him. The only one who could visually see that is the right fielder. I don't know many right fielders at the high school level that are going to yell that he's going. It's not going to happen. And I don't just steal for the sake of stealing. I'm studying what the catcher does. If he catches and frames it and he stares at his glove, that half a second is enough for us to be safe. Does the shortstop after the prep step look up, look down, and kick the dirt? Does he start walking a step towards third after every pitch? Does he spit in his glove? Whatever it may be, if he has one tendency to take his eye off the baseball, I know that delay is going to work. And we were 98 for 100 over 3 years.
That's awesome.
So when we're done, I'll tell you how to do it so your husband knows.
Yeah, he's gonna love this. I'm like, and I'm trying to, ask questions because I feel like this year he's second year head coach at Chandler High here in Arizona, and he's really put together quite a coaching staff, and it's good to sit back as a coach's wife, as a coach, and see like each person kind of hone in what they're good at and then come together for the greater picture, not just of the team, but for each other. Like, there's a big picture and it's always about the athletes, but if you as a coaching staff can remember that your job is to own what you're supposed to do to make this person look great, you're going to expect your kids to do the same thing. And in turn, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I love the definition of a teammate is to make each other look great. And the way you do that is you own your position.
Yep.
And it's basically like playing catch. You just throw the ball, you catch the ball, you throw it. I mean, like, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So
One thing that I learned from one of my mentors. So when I was the head coach in Albertus, the athletic director was Joe McGinnis, my old basketball coach, the coach that I learned so much from. So he had told me two things leading up to becoming the head coach there. One of them was you owe the players one thing always, and that's honesty. That was one thing that he always said. Don't sugarcoat the fact that hey, you're doing great. Next year, I could see you as the 3-hitter, but you're lying to the kid. I'd rather say, look, you're gonna have to work a lot harder to get into the lineup next year. So take 10 minutes, 15 minutes every day, hit off the tee. It'll make a difference. I'd rather say that instead of giving some false hope and, telling a kid that he's possibly going to be somewhere that he's not, because then he's not going to work as hard. He's going to say, oh, well, coach told me next year I'm going to be in the lineup, so what do I have to do to get better? I'm already in, so I never want a kid to feel like it's his turn, like his spot is guaranteed, you always want a competition in practice in some which way, even if it's bunting into hula hoops, that brings the energy up. That brings the excitement. That makes them really work, when they're competing, opposed to, all right, guys, everybody's got to go to the bunting station. Then it's just like bing, 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 and they want to just be done with that. So I always try to make it some kind of competition. And the other thing that he said was, when you start as a coach, like for us, March 12th is day one. When you start as a head coach, it's very difficult to go from a nice guy to an authority figure and expect them to listen to you. Now, you could start off stern and always back off each day and become a nicer person. And then they will start to respond like, oh, maybe he's not really a jerk. He actually is really a nice guy. Like he's not as mean as we thought he was, but if I start off as the nice guy and you're going to get walked all over, like that's the way he explained it to me. And I mean, I didn't come in like, Sergeant Slaughter, everybody on the line, put your bags in order, like nothing like that. It's just, you want them to respect you and they want the respect that they deserve as well, so I felt like that was the way that you would be able to guarantee that that's going to happen.
Wait, coach, wait. You want Coach Kallv V to come train your pitchers? Sweet. KVS is coming to your city. Let's go. Just go to the show notes and there's a link, KallyVSoftball.com, and just fill out the contact info and make sure in the memo you put KVS Pitching Workshop. And from there, we're able to set up a call and talk about what it would look like for KVS to come to your facility and train your pitchers.
It's going to happen.
Oh, that's good. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions here.
Sure.
Let's see. When you first started coaching, what did you do to educate yourself as a new coach? Or did you think that you could just go straight from being a pro to being a really good coach? What did you do?
I've seen and I've had coaches that have coached with me. I've coached against other coaches that, played it in pro ball. And, just like you had said on your post the other day, just because you played professional baseball, that doesn't make you a good coach. It makes you very knowledgeable about the game, but it doesn't teach you to, like I always joke around as a baseball coach, I feel like I'm a psychologist, a therapist, like everything, because you're dealing with so many different personalities, like the one kid who always gets mad after his at bat, but out of respect for you, he will not throw the bat or slam his helmet,
Mm-hmm.
but he's going to go out in the field and probably make an error because that at bat is going to carry over to next inning. You know, how can I, as a coach, make sure that doesn't happen? What can I do? I feel like the guys that, are pro ball guys, they know that when they strike out in pro ball, they're going to get another at bat. Like the world's not going to end.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different level, but at the lower level, those kids, they don't grasp that yet.
Right.
They're immature. As they mature as kids, you'll see from freshman to senior year that one kid who was always angry as a freshman, he's probably
Mm-hmm.
going to be one of the quieter ones as a senior because he's now matured enough and understood what you've been preaching to him for X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like when it came to X's and O's, when it came to um, you know, positioning guys, cutoff and relays, first and third plays, very knowledgeable, but sometimes they don't know how to interpret it to the kids,
Right.
because at the level they played at, they know it. It's expected to be known.
Right.
You could do it once in practice. This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. You're going to fake here and throw there. It's going to happen in the first try. In high
Mm-hmm.
school, it might take 15 tries. Do you have the patience to not lose it? Do you have the patience to not, bark at a kid because he's not getting it? I feel like they expect more things to happen quicker than they actually do. So I don't know if being a pitcher changes things from being a position player, walking out of pro ball to coach. I can't speak for position players, but those are the ones that coach with me. Those are the ones that I coached against. And I feel like they didn't have the team aspect as much as other coaches. Like even for instance, a gym teacher in the school, he has a better relationship with every kid than the guy who shows up at 2:30 for 2 hours or an hour and a half, every day.
Yeah.
The gym teacher sees them in school in the hallways all the time, sees him for his class, sees him at practice. He's going to gain a better relationship with that kid. And then that kid is going to respond differently to him than he will to the guy that played at the high level. I feel like the kids are very intimidated by guys that come out of pro ball,
Mm-hmm.
because they feel like, oh, I have to do what he said because, he played for the Mets, like that's not the case. Like when it came to me, like working with kids, I don't necessarily look at a kid throw 5 pitches and say, you need to do this because this is the way I did it. Every kid throws different release point. Their mechanics are different. I try to just like listening to an old school radio where you had to find the station, and fine tune it for it to come in clear. That's kind of my approach with kids. I'm going to fine tune what he's doing. If he's pitching and I think that he could possibly get hurt because of his mechanics, that's a different story. Then we'll kind of overhaul what he's doing.
Right.
But if he's had success from 12 years old on and he's 15 now, why would I change what he's doing if I didn't think he would get hurt? Yeah, I might be able to keep him back so he throws a little harder. I might be able to change a grip where he gets more movement, stuff like that. That's kind of how I approach it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell a kid who's been holding the bat like this since he's 7 to all of a sudden hold the bat like that. He's not going to be able to do it.
Right.
Now, if he does it once and gets a good result after 3 swings, he's going to be back here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, your body's going to revert back to what it knows, and if he holds it, I guess the way they say the proper way, line up your knuckles and hits 3 line drives up the middle. Right. So now he's seeing what he's saying, it actually works,
Mm-hmm.
so he'll be more reluctant to try it. Now, I'm not going to tell him every pitch, fix your hands, fix your hands, fix your hands. Cause now it's just a command and it's just, I'm listening because you're my authoritarian,
Right.
I'd rather him figure it out on his own after 10 swings. After 10 swings, I'll be like, check your hands, and then
Yeah.
he'll go back. He'll hit the ball pretty good. Damn, this works. This works,
Yeah.
and let them figure that out. I'm not going to sit there and say, see, I told you my way works. You know,
I
they
can't.
don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I can't. No, it's so funny that you were talking about relationship with the gym teacher because my husband and I were talking about this the other day, and he was talking about as a teacher on campus, he has more of a relationship with the players. Like he really loves it. But he brings in, former professional players to come on staff to, continue to feed these kids like the reality of something that could happen for them if they X, Y, and Z kind of scenario.
Yeah.
So I like that you brought that up. I know when my husband listens to this will probably be the one that he actually listens to. He's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, like that's exactly what I said." But
Yeah.
no,
Like,
that's huge.
I have a good example. I believe it was my second year at the high school, Albertus, where I was the head coach. I had a guy coaching with me. He had played 11 years of pro ball, 7 of them in AAA. I mean, when it came to hitting, when it came to fielding, knew everything. I mean, everything. He was just very knowledgeable about the game of baseball. Like sometimes he would talk to the hitters, but because of the level he was at, he was speaking so technical, but never dropped down to the kid's level where he could understand it. That's where I see, the different parallels when it comes to a guy coming out of pro ball.
Do you mentor them, like to kind of like, do you take them aside and be like, "Hey, I'm not knocking what you're doing, but I'm going to help you meet that kid exactly where they're at with all your years of coaching"? Do you take that moment and use it as a constructive like moment
to the coach or to the kid?
Yes, to the coach.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
We're talking all the time, where we'll set up a drill, say, like we do a pickoff drill in practice where there's 3 lines on the mound. He's picking a first, he's picking a second, he's picking a third, all at the same time. So everybody's going boom, balls are getting thrown everywhere, and they're doing that. If I have a kid or a coach that's teaching the kid, but he's slightly wrong with what he's saying, I'll never say it out loud in front of everybody. I'll pull them aside, and I do that with the kids too. I never will I say, why do you keep lifting your leg the wrong way in front of everybody? Because now I'm singling him out. Now, technically, when he goes home and says, "Coach yelled at me," I did, instead of pulling him aside and saying, "Listen, man, you have to focus more. The reason why you're not getting it is because in between your turn, you're messing around with Joey instead of watching the guys in front of you. So, you don't make a mistake. You're better than that. Come on." And I'll walk away, So that's a different approach.
That's a conversation between you and him, but like other people can see it. They can see that you're not yelling at him. You're not talking down to him kind of scenario.
Yeah. You're treating him as an equal.
Cause and I do know that there are coaches out there that are still coaching 30 years later, and they're still riding the wave of, well, this is how we did it. And then say a new coach comes in, like, I'll just put it out there. My husband, he went to the APCA. He goes every year, and Stankiewicz had this amazing presentation. And my husband's like, this is what I'm trying to get everybody to understand. But when you have a coach who's not willing to buy into that, how do you handle that? Like, say you brought in a coach because they've been in it for a while. They're like, their heart, they're a good person, but they have this almost like flaw in their coaching where they're not taking a moment to talk to the kid one-on-one. They're just outlandishly coming at them during practice. How do you handle that if you have ever had to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, a lot of the guys I coach with, one of the guys I coach with, he was with me kind of, I think it's 7 out of the 8 years he was my hitting coach, and I was the best man at his wedding. Like, we were tight, and personality wise, we're the same, we're identical. So I never had to worry about that with him. Now, are there times in practice that, my fungo bat goes for a ride? Yeah, absolutely. And that's more of a frustration when an entire team, like infield pop-ups, always an issue, always an issue. And when I don't use the machine, I hit them a mile in the air. I expect them to mess up. I expect them to miss them. And I've told every team I've ever coached from day one, the first day, I say, if you make an error, if you strike out, you're never going to get yelled at by me, ever, because physical mistakes are going to happen, and they're going to happen more then something good, a hit, a routine ground ball. The mistakes are going to happen. Mental mistakes, missing a sign, not being in the right spot on the first and third play. Those things are what will get me upset. Never booting a ball. If you boot a ball, so what? Who cares? Get the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Like during infield, outfield, if before a game, if they make a mistake or boot a ball, it goes in their back pocket. They don't throw a ball across the infield and it looks terrible, while the other team's watching you warm up. You boot a ball, boom, put it in your back pocket. You boot another one, put it in your other pocket. And I'll jokingly say, hey, 3 for $1, like the carnival, and I'll hit another one. Whatever it is to get their mind off of, God, I can't feel the ground ball today. I can't feel the ground ball today.
Yeah.
They're about to start on the field for a home game, and your shortstop just missed every ground ball you hit him. What can I do as a coach to get him out of the funk that he's in, thinking he can't feel the ground ball? So again, infield ends, pull him aside. Hey, good thing we made all those errors during
That's
warm-ups.
exactly what I say when I'm helping warm up pitchers, and let's just say their warm up just wasn't that well. I'll be like, hey, you're not going to walk the first 3 batters. You're good. It's out of your system. Let's go.
I mean, I tell the kids that warm up all the time. There's times where I had the worst warm up ever, and I was a closer. I couldn't throw a breaking ball for a strike, and then I come in the game, first pitch, calls breaking ball. It's like, oh God, here we go. But you throw it for a strike, and you're like, all right, I'm back. Whatever.
There it
Gets
is.
your brain back on track. But
I love it. I love it. All right, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions here. Let's see. This is a typical question. I think a lot of coaches get asked this because, like, coaching 17 different kids, 17 different personalities, you have 64 different personalities behind those 17 different personalities. Mm-hmm. How do you handle parent feedback? And let's just go ahead and start off with the negative, like worst case scenario. Maybe you have an example of it, and then like how you handled it in the beginning versus maybe how you handle it now. Does that make sense? So like maybe you could say, like, early on in my career, I really handled it bad. X, Y, and Z happened, but now same thing comes my way and I just handle it this way.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have in the building a guy that has coached for a very long time. So I would always turn to him. If I ever needed advice for anything. And then on top of that, my brother is a lacrosse coach. He coached lacrosse out in Chicago. He started it in that area. He won, 2 or 3 state championships. Then he took the job at top 25 school in the country, Don Bosco High School, won a state championship there. Now he's the athletic director at my old high school that started this year. So him being a coach, I was always able to also reach out to him. I reached out to him 2 weeks ago, to ask him a question about, something that was going on with the basketball team. So full circle, the coach that I played basketball for, his son is the head coach at the high school that I'm coaching baseball for. That's basketball. Amazing. So he asked me to help him out this year, basketball, which I haven't done in 25 years. But looking at the amount of things his father did for me, that's a 100% yes. I can't say no. So I helped him out, and we were having a little issue with our team. So I reached out to my brother for advice, and I'll never go at it by myself. I'll always interact with the other coaches, somebody that I respect, that I feel would give me an answer that is a good answer.
That was a show. Part 1 is done. Super excited, super grateful that Pat Gorman gave me his time expressing his journey, his story, the glory, all of it. But it doesn't stop there. You don't want to miss out on part 2. He's going to share even more in his journey from the coaches that had, I guess, the strength to mentor him. I mean, it would be kind of intimidating, right? To mentor a former professional, right? But he didn't have that. He had coaches that poured into him in such a way that now he pours into other coaches. And one of my favorites is one of his little things that he does for his outfielders, and it's literally with a note card. And then, yes, Pat Gorman is his family's black sheep. You're gonna want to hear this story. It's a great story. Don't miss it. Like, subscribe, follow the show on all the podcast platforms as well as YouTube so you don't miss out on this. Real quick, I just want to say thank you for being a part of the KVS Big Picture. And if you would like to be a part of the KVS Big Picture, it's super simple. All you need to do is like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast on multiple podcast platforms, as well as YouTube. And don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms. Thank you again, guys, for listening to the show and allowing me to bring you quality content for the coach, the parents, as well as you, the athlete. Thanks, guys, and God bless.